Dontaye. This is
How
Caleb.
you doing?
How are you, man? Good to be here. I'm Caleb with DemX Media. We present information and educate voters about the process and about candidates to seek to see a fair and equitable Georgia. And I believe that you do.
Thank you.
And I definitely just want you to introduce yourself. I'm doing this promo series 4 weeks for 4 seats where I'm focusing on 4 different cities in Georgia. And I love your vision for what you want to do for Sandy Springs. So if you just introduce yourself and we'll get right into it.
Yeah, so my name's Dontaye Carter. I'm running for mayor on November 2nd, 2021 here in the city of Sandy Springs. My background, I graduated from Florida A&M University. I started working in television news while I was still in school. Worked as an executive producer, anchor reporter, was in the industry for over 10 years and worked at 11 Live and CBS 46 here in Atlanta.
Cool.
And once I left the industry, I went over and worked over at the Fulton County DA's office, youngest person to lead up their PR department. And my second year there, I got the itch to step out, and that's what I did. So started my own PR firm. I worked with attorneys, civil rights attorneys, attorneys that fight for our voting rights, and just working to make this a more equitable Georgia, and really trying to follow in the words of our forefathers and making this a more perfect union. And you make this a more perfect union by bringing people of diverse backgrounds to the table that are bringing diverse ideas to the table that are going to expand how we see our city government and the role that our city government plays in our lives.
And I wanted to say, I guess, why 2021? I know that you made a decision, obviously, in probably the past few months or so to do it.
Well, last year there were a few campaigns that I worked on. I was part of the communications team that worked to get Shamila Williams elected as judge. Worked to get Mandisha Thomas in there. We fell just a tad short with Judge Rabowski Houston, but what I started to see is we needed to get more people in office that reflected the values of the people. And I think it started off with me looking at the 21st Century Policing Initiative, where it discussed that if what the laws that you're enforcing don't represent the values of the people, there's always going to be tension. And so people that always ask, why is there tension? Well, it's because the values of the people aren't being represented. And that's what I'm running on. I'm running to put our values first. I've got a little girl. I'm raising a young family. When I look into her eyes, she was kind of that pivotal step in waking me up in a sense, and not waking me up as I was asleep, but waking me up as, okay, this is bigger than just my family. This is about Georgia. Georgia played such a crucial role because there were so many people in this state that took responsibility of our politics, that understood that my vote matters. That's when I said, you know what, it's time for me to step up in my role, because again, this is bigger than me. I want to not just create space for my daughter, but our children, the children that are coming up in this community. Sandy Springs is a very diverse community. 40% minority. We don't have anybody in leadership right now that reflects us and reflects our values. And I think it's time for that to change.
So it makes me think, Sandy Springs is changing so much that we need to tap into that energy and that enthusiasm, I'd say, because we got to meet the moment. I think we do.
What's funny is because my wife, she's an OBGYN here in Sandy Springs. Can't tell you how many doors I've knocked on and somebody's like, your wife delivered my kids. And these are people of different faiths, different races, but the thing that brings us all together is the fact that we value humanity. And that's what this is about. I often tell people diversity and inclusion is an illusion if you're not talking about equity. And I think it's time for us to really start taking equitable looks at what we're doing and making a strong impact there.
For sure. Well, I wanted to say too, what would you say you want to achieve by the end of your first term as mayor? Like whether that be climate, healthcare, criminal justice, or education?
I think the biggest thing that we're facing here in Sandy Springs, because I don't think it's about, necessarily what I want to achieve, but what I'm hearing from people that I'm knocking on doors and talking to. And the vast majority of people that I'm talking to, even in District 1, which, you're not going to see the same type of apartments you're seeing in other parts of the city. They're talking about affordable housing and what that means. There's a couple there that I spoke to, a young family that lived down in Atlanta, and they were essentially priced out. And they had to sell their home because they couldn't afford to live there. Property taxes were shooting up. And now they're in Sandy Springs, they're asking the question of, okay, is the same thing going to happen to us here? I value that because I value young families, I value humanity, And I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to have right now is really taking a hard look at affordable housing, looking at our anti-displacement laws, looking at rezoning, coming up with a strong plan that's going to move the city forward and do it in a way that brings us all together. And I think right now that's what we're lacking. I was listening to one of our diversity and inclusion task force meetings, and they were talking about mass transportation and housing. And one of the young ladies said, what is the point of us doing all this if the city council isn't even considering our recommendations? That impacted me because, if we're talking about equity, if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, why aren't these voices being heard?
I mean, it makes me think of that. I hate this quote, but like, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yeah.
Because that will be the first thing to be slashed for funds and everything. And I wanted to say, you lived here a couple of years, you told me, about 7. Would you say it is possible to build the electorate to win?
I definitely is. I think we've seen that, right? We saw that with the, we've seen that with the runoff. We've seen that with the presidential primary. The people are here, but we got to give them a reason to show up. And again, if we're not talking to the people, if we're talking about issues that they don't care about, they're not coming to the polls. Again, this isn't about politics. This is about policies, and it's about people. And if we don't start talking to the people, if we don't let the people know that we hear them, that we see them, that we are concerned about their everyday needs, what's going to happen? There was an article that just came out that talked about how the incumbent gave one of the developers a $42 million tax break. You're showing our business community that they're valued. You're showing our developers that they're valued. But what about the everyday people that make Sandy Springs work? We've got a huge working class here. We've got people who are showing up in this city. That population would be much bigger if they could afford to live here, because Sandy Springs population grows every day double. We got over 110,000. This city only has 110,000 residents, and it doubles every day with people coming here to work. More people come into Sandy Springs to work than actually leave out. And so when we talk about transportation and why everything's so cluttered, I mean, you alleviate some of that by addressing the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is housing, and that's what people are talking about. When I'm knocking on doors, when I'm getting out and I'm talking to people, they're very concerned about that. There's a woman that I spoke to, Nina. Gosh, I mean, she's put 3 kids through the schools in Sandy Springs. And I know it's a Fulton County school district, but they've all gone to school here. And she said, I would have bought a house if I could afford to, but I can't. So she spent that entire time. So they say, the apartments, the renters, they're short term and they're transit. No, they're not. There are people here that want a better life for folks. And I understand that, because I was one of those. I was my mother, when she went through the divorce with my father, she didn't want us growing up in a place where we didn't have the opportunities to get better. And so it started out with us being 5 people in a 1-bedroom apartment, but she went back to school. And even me seeing her do that is what inspired me on my path. That's why I was able to work full-time at a news station and go to school for full-time, because I saw my mother do it. I saw the work ethic that she had. Yeah,
for sure. And that creates the equitable Georgia that we definitely see. Do you have a catchphrase for your campaign?
We've got a heavy lift here. An extremely heavy lift here in Sandy Springs. We got some work to put in. But one of the things that my mother would always say is, what beats a failure? And we'd always say, another try, another try, another try. And, I made it to where I am in life because I kept trying. And what I'm asking the citizens of Sandy Springs to do is to give Dontaye a try, because I believe that we can make a huge impact here in the city.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
I just want folks to know that I care. I want them to know that I'm here for them, that I'm going to bat for them. And I know all of it's it might seem like I'm just talking, but I'm telling you, I'm here to fight, I'm here to win, and I'm here to make a difference. And we're going to make all these things happen.
No, awesome. Well, okay, this is Caleb with DemX Media, Dontaye Carter for Sandy Springs, promoting progressives to power.